I'm John Howell, and I just wanted to recount a little story that developed in World War II. I was in the RAF and was put on a convoy out of Gourock near in Scotland going to North Africa about the middle of March 1943. We skirted around a bunch of U-boats on the way there, but the convoy made it pretty well safely through the Straits of Gibraltar, and we were about to arrive in Algiers on the 22nd of March. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, an Italian aircraft, it was a float plane, came along and dropped a torpedo which hit the ship I was on, the Windsor Castle, and stopped her dead in the water. I at the time was sleeping down the E-deck, which was very close to the water. Didn't hear any noise at all, but was awakened by somebody skirmishing, looking for the clothing, and finally a chap said to me, I said, "Is something going on up here?" And he said, "Bloody hell, didn't you hear all the bangs and the alarms and the bells going off?" And I said, "No." So anyway, myself, I made it, I woke up a buddy of mine beside me and asked him, told him about this, and he said he didn't want to play soldiers at that time of the night at 2 o'clock in the morning. So he said, "You go and find out and come back and tell me all about it." Well, he found out later and joined us, but anyway, I made it up to the emergency stations, where we're all lined up with the officer telling us to go over the side where there were supposed to be motorboats. And anyway, we got in a lineup, orderly lineup, to go over the side and a rope ladder, and I was the last on a motorboat that was right there. There were a couple of corvettes staying about a quarter of a mile away, small Navy miniature destroyers, and on the motorboat we're all ready to go when a voice called from way up at the officer's deck that you can't sail without me because I'm the engineering officer in charge of that lifeboat. We said, "Well, get down here in a hurry, we're going." And as we were waiting, I picked up an oar to ward us off from the big ship because we kept bumping against it and it was getting kind of awkward, especially with the big davits with a big hook that's coming up under that as well. And I heard this commotion going on as this guy was sliding down the rope. The little cross on top of the cabin apparently hit him as it was swaying and he was coming down, broke his arm, knocked him in the water, and they seemed sort of knocked out of it, but they dragged him in and was able to get the engine started. We got the thing going and sailed over to the corvette, where we were now way down low in the water. The corvette seemed way up high, but the swell brought the motorboat up level with the deck of the corvette for about 10 seconds or less. So we ended up two at a time on top of the deck of this little motorboat, leaping across the gap between the two ships, and we all got
How scary
on board.
was that? How scary was that leap?
It was pretty scary because the boat, when the swell went down, the whole thing was like an express elevator going down, and then you waited until it came all the way back up again. And it was hard to know at that time in the morning what was up and what was nearly up and what was about to go down. So we took a leap over and were grabbed by a couple of sailors who pulled us in sort of face first onto the corvette.
What would happen if you didn't make it?
It would be a nasty drop down, and then you might be the meat and the sandwich between the motorboat and the corvette when they bash together again. Anyway, we were picking up people then from that time on, and there were so many of us on the corvette, we were told to stay low because we could have capsized that thing. There was 2,000 people on the Windsor Castle, And we ended up going alongside in daylight, and nets were thrown out from the Windsor Castle, and the remaining people on board came down to the two corvettes, and we sailed for Algiers, where we arrived about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There was no preparation made. It was, some of us had boots and stockings, some had none at all. It was the motliest crowd you ever saw that arrived at this makeshift camp, where there was a great big old a box carrying parts and pieces had been converted into a sort of a kitchen, and we were given 2 slices of bread. We'd no nice fork spoons or anything like that, nor did they, and we were given these 2 slices of bread, and then first stop we got a slice of corned beef on one slice of bread and a chunk of cheese on the second one. And as we moved down the aisle, we were given a dab of margarine on the right hand, some chunk of cheese on the left hand, and finally a spoonful of jam on the right hand. we ended up just standing looking at this and then clapping it together, and boy, that was the best meal I ever ate. It was it was just fantastic. So there you are. That was it.
What did you find out about your ship years later?
Oh, years later, I ran into a chap who had been on destroyers in the Royal Navy down in Alexandria in the Mediterranean, and was told to come out and tow this ship that had been torpedoed, which was the Windsor Castle. They were supposed to tow it into Gibraltar, apparently. What developed was, as soon as they put the hawsers on the Windsor Castle to tow it, the big barriers in the ship, I can't think of the name of what they call these the watertight doors things, all fell over like dominoes, and the ship just sailed right down. These people had to cut the ropes with hacks, axes, saws, whatever they could get to release themselves. Otherwise, the big 20,000-ton ship would have pulled them right down the water as well. That was the end of the Windsor Castle.